What is up, Geeks and Geekettes? It's another episode of the Countdown to the Geekcast, and this is going to be one of the happiest moments of this show. We got a lot to talk about because today was a big announcement for a lot of fans out there. I can't even talk right now. Zack Snyder's Justice League is going to get released in 2021. Next year, we're getting the long-awaited, for most of us, Snyder cut of the Justice League. I've already skipped our intro. My name is Steady. With me on this episode is the man, the myth, the legend, Superman's #1 fan. No, not Jericho, but JC, because he's here. It's JC.
Hey everybody, and I'm glad you remembered that I'm on the show too today, Steady. I was wondering, when is he going to get to me?
When? Is it? When? Just too much going on in my head. I'm gonna try and organize it as best as possible. There's so much to talk about today, but it's all DC related, which is never a bad thing. We'll kind of skip the geeky weekly updates just to make sure that we get through everything we need to today. If you were following our show, if you've been following us on social media, we've been talking about this morning's event. Zack Snyder was going to host a Man of Steel watch party. He does a live commentary on his Vero account, and he did the same thing with Batman v Superman.
Batman v Superman.
I almost said Justice League. He did the same thing with Batman v Superman earlier this year. Was it last year? I can't remember now.
No, it was maybe like a month or two ago, I think.
Yeah, it was a huge success, and exactly. So I'm gonna bring that up later on, actually. And he did the same thing with Man of Steel, and it was very like, oh, that's kind of interesting. You did it now. You know, HBO Max is coming out in a week, so it's a very peculiar time to be doing a watch party for Man of Steel. But you know what? Rumors started flying. This was going to be a bigger deal than anticipated. And then all of a sudden, people started harping on the Snyder Cut getting released. This morning, we got the announcement. It was a tremendous event. Henry Cavill crashed the watch party. And he had about what, 10 other like super fans that just joined in on the Q&A portion after the movie was over.
Yeah. I'm a wrestling guy. It was a good time. I'm a wrestling guy. It was a work, but I definitely enjoyed this work. It was like when Henry Cavill's jumping in, and I'm like, when his wife is sitting there next to him, when people jumping on the TV on the meeting, all I have is Zack Snyder Justice League logos, gears, posters. I'm like, something's up here. What's going on? Yeah. So I like how they did it. I think they booked it pretty well. They booked the territory very well, as wrestling fans would say.
Oh my goodness, it was tremendous. I absolutely loved it. So we're gonna talk about not only the Snyder Cut getting announced and the release that's gonna come next year on the HBO Max streaming service later in this show, but first we want to talk about the main reason. Well, I guess what was the first part of the this morning's event was Man of Steel watch party. JC is one of the biggest Superman fans that I know. He also watched the Man of Steel watch party. JC, you didn't get to watch the BVS watch party, so sort of how much did you enjoy Zack Snyder's live commentary along with rewatching the film?
I think I enjoyed a lot of some of the Easter eggs you pointed out that I didn't catch before, but I feel like watching it and having him point things out, I feel like Zach's as big a Superman fan as I am. I feel like this was a dream movie for him, is what it felt like. And I feel like he was just very excited to talk about it and talk through everything. Getting his insight on things, getting his mindset was really, really cool. I've always enjoyed the whole director commentary, like when DVDs first came out and that was an alternate track, that was such a big deal. So getting that whole behind the scenes, him talking through things, him sharing storyboards, I thought that was really cool. I thought that was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed that. And getting his mind right on where his story is. So not a lot of directors do that.
There you go.
Mhm.
And I too enjoyed it a lot, mainly because I watched the BVS one, and that was such a big success.
Mhm.
Because again, he revealed a lot of stuff. He even revealed some things that kind of went into Justice League. He revealed a lot about the DCEU. So I'm like, hell yeah, I'm gonna watch the Man of Steel one. And then as we got closer and closer, it's like this might be a bigger deal than we first anticipated.
Yeah.
So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna go over. I was live tweeting on our Twitter account at ccg_podcast. So if you missed the watch party, I'm sure you can actually rewatch it on either Vero, or I'm pretty sure somebody uploaded the stream to YouTube.
I'm sure they
But
probably tweeted that segment out too. I'm sure. So yeah.
exactly. But
Yeah.
what we're gonna do is go over some of the main revelations that came about, some of the things that we found interesting, some of the aspects of the film we didn't think about before that were revealed to us. Man of Steel is a great movie. I really enjoyed it when it first came out. I did have some criticisms of of maybe the tone of some of the parts of the film, some of the acts, mainly the final act, I think. But
Mhm.
knowing the vision, seeing the overall theme of the DCEU as Zack Snyder sort of was writing it out and outlining everything, I think Man of Steel is an absolute masterpiece. I think when you're trying to write a realistic superhero movie in the 2000s, I'm pretty sure that this is the only way to get it done.
I agree.
Yeah,
Yeah. I don't think you and I have talked about Man of Steel because by the time I got on the podcast, we were almost into Justice League territory.
exactly.
But yeah, when the movie came out, God, I remember what year it was now. 2013, 2014, no,
I think you're right.
2015, 2015. Um, when it came out and I went to see it and I had my family and friends, what did you think? I said, I think this was the best Superman film ever made, hands
Oh yeah.
down. Yeah, I even put it above any of the Keanu Reeves movies or Keanu Reeves,
Keanu Reeves.
Christopher Reeves movies.
Whoa.
Wow, it is late, man. It is late. Oh, the Keanu Reeves could pull it off. No, the Christopher Reeve movies. And I said I think it's the best Superman movie, but I'm not sure yet at the time if he was the best Superman. That was still to be determined. But
Yeah.
I thoroughly enjoyed the movie then, and still now. So
Oh man, let's get into some of these parts that we're talking about. So again, Zack Snyder is hosting a live commentary while we're rewatching Man of Steel. Let's see here. I thought it was hilarious that they filmed a lot of the action sequences in Canada, mostly Vancouver. They
mhm.
actually had a partnership with the Department of Defense and the Coast Guard. So if you're seeing a helicopter in a scene, that's most likely the Coast Guard that was in one of the opening sequences,
Yeah.
rescuing some oil riggers from one of the drilling facilities out in the ocean. So the helicopter shots, most of them are absolutely real. And then towards the end of the movie, all real helicopters used by the military, all in partnership with the DoD, with Zack Snyder. I'm like, dude, this is like some major stuff
Mhm.
we're doing here. There's no small budget. Like they're going all out basically on all these things. It's crazy. I loved it though.
Me too. Me too. I always enjoy that. I know we don't always generally say nice things about him, but Michael Bay does a lot of stuff with working with the military as well, and he's very. I think he gets a lot of that work. So, getting that sort of training, getting that support from the government,
Yeah.
whatever government he's working with, that's a big deal. So the country's happy to host it.
Let's see here. The flashbacks. We see a lot of flashbacks. Something that we're really not accustomed to when this movie come out was sort of jump cuts between the present and the past of young Clark Kent.
Right.
So again, I think that's just something that was ahead of its time. Many TV shows weren't even doing that by this point, and now that's all TV shows do is jump from like present or mess around with timelines and things like that. I mean, Deadpool, we were jumping back and forth when we were watching Deadpool between
Yeah.
present and past, but the flashbacks are to show young Clark and show Clark becoming the man that he is as an adult. So I really like the way Zack Snyder sort of described the purpose of all those jump cuts. Again, ahead of its time, I think, because no one was really doing that. You kind of expected a very linear story to be told because we started out with Krypton. Listen, we can't skip the
No.
very opening sequence too much. I mean, if you're just talking about the first 10 minutes of the film, absolute perfection.
Yeah.
So much
Easy.
thought, so much detail. The actors of
Russell Crowe.
Russell, I always want to say Kurt Russell. Russell Crowe, Michael Shannon, just everybody just perfect. I mean, it was like Star Wars, but like DC comic style, and I absolutely loved it.
Yeah.
I thought it was glorious, is what it was.
And every detail he had, even down to the Warner Brothers logo at the beginning, he was very detailed about that, about how important that was to show, hey, we're going back to this Kryptonian technology, this Kryptonian era. And he did it's such a great job that those 10 minutes alone inspire the Krypton TV series that we all love, so that we want back as well. So
Yeah,
we never really got a good backstory on Krypton the way that he presented it. I thought that was amazing.
yeah, absolutely loved it. Thought it was absolutely perfect. It's been a while since I've seen Man of Steel, but
Yeah.
I won't forget just how it felt watching that first act alone on Krypton. Just absolutely perfect. Fast forwarding again back to Clark. He's working in a diner, and I thought it was hilarious when he gets bullied, I guess, by this, this random truck driver customer.
Yeah.
Um, Obviously, he's holding back, but he tears up his big rig and throws a couple of telephone poles through it. And I found it interesting that was not CG as I had originally thought. They literally like set up a semi with some telephone poles in it.
Yeah.
So just a fully built prop. I would just thought like that's a lot of work to do for that like two
So it's a
second
lot of
shot,
money
but
spending.
they
Yeah,
did it.
exactly. Yeah.
Oh my god, wonderful.
Yeah.
Let's see here. I noticed Clark. This is something that I actually noticed. One of the first times Clark is using his heat vision on the screen is when they're up in the Arctic, I believe, and he's actually cutting a tunnel through the ice to get to
Right.
the lost Kryptonian ship. When he walks out of the tunnel, he stops using his vision, and you see him sort of shrug it off. And
Mhm.
I'm like, I've never noticed that before. And that's such an important detail because even as an adult, Clark has not yet mastered his powers.
No.
And it's
He's been
showing. And
yeah,
he's showing that. He's showing like he's still not used to it. It's still, it's still maybe exhausting for him or it takes a little bit out of him where he's still not comfortable with even using something as simple as heat vision. And yet he's already probably in his mid late 20s by this point,
mhm.
maybe early 30s. I don't know how Clark is supposed to be at this point, but such a small detail, but very telling of the story Zack is trying to tell. This is not Superman. This is actually nowhere near
No.
Superman. Even with the
This is
suit on, he's still not Superman. He's still just Clark wearing a suit, and he's still learning how to be Superman.
yeah.
This whole movie is about him just being the Man of
Yeah.
Steel.
Yeah, this isn't Smallville Clark where he had 10 years to figure it out. No, this is someone who was raised by his adoptive parents to hide who he was
Yeah,
for fear of putting people around him in danger.
there you go.
So, even as a kid, he accidentally fired it off when he heated up that doorknob. And yeah, the struggle is there. I always noticed that too, that that takes a lot out of him.
Yeah,
That's he's using the solar radiation in his blood cells to power his heat vision, and if he uses it too much, he loses his power. So that was something he was getting used to. His eyes were burning, and it's telling too. It took him so many years to get used to the Earth's atmosphere, even though he grew up there. So he was still having to learn how to deal with that, and then had these newfound abilities. It was showing, even at his age, how slow he was to adapt to this world as a Kryptonian. Mhm.
one of the biggest revelations that Zack sort of set up in this movie was kind of one of the next scenes. Clark is walking around this crashed Kryptonian ship. We find out the ship has been here for 20,000 years,
Mm-hmm.
and Zack lays it all out there. He said every one of the Kryptonians on this ship died, except for one. He says
So
one of
happy to
them.
hear that.
He says
So
one of
happy.
them got up, one of them escaped, and he just says one survived, and then he says, "Stay tuned." Zack Snyder says, "Stay tuned." Let me tell you something. If Zack Snyder, who's known about the Justice League Snyder cut for months now, and has still been like, kind of throwing hints or throwing little teases here and there. If he says stay tuned, that means a lot more now than it ever did before. JC, your thoughts?
It was a great tease. Like, okay, that line alone is like, okay, I'm interested. I'm going to keep listening.
Man,
Uh, I'll mention this. Thank God. I mean, no, it's not thank God for the quarantine, but the fact that we're all stuck working from home right now, it allowed me to listen to this while I was working.
right?
But then I'm having to. My wife had to go in the office a bit, so I had to juggle getting the kids down for lunch, and I'm sitting here trying to get that ready while I'm listening on the iPad. So I wasn't able to watch a whole lot. I was more listening than anything. So when he said stay tuned, I was like, okay, I'm listening, sir. I got you. So
Man.
mhm.
Okay, so we're just sitting here getting excited, but let's go ahead and spell out what it probably means and what are the possibilities. Just real quick. We're not gonna spend a lot of time on this. Everyone assumes that the other Kryptonian is Kara,
Mhm.
Clark's or Kal-El's cousin,
Cousin,
um, who, in some stories comes to Earth after Clark, but
or at the same
there's,
time. It depends, yeah. But
yeah,
yeah. Mhm.
exactly. This could be this could be a way for her to get to Earth. This could be a story where she gets to Earth way before him and is still hiding out for whatever reason. I don't know. It's interesting that it's 20,000 years. 20,000 Earth years is a very long time for her to be on Earth, and either no one to notice, Amazonians haven't noticed, or anything like that.
Exactly.
So all the fans are already assuming it's Kara. All right? Supergirl, for those of you who don't know who Kara is. Supergirl on Earth. Zack and the DCEU and the writers, they have been changing some elements that I haven't been against a whole lot. We're allowing them to take some freedoms with some things. Aquaman looks a little bit different. Some of the
Mhm.
stories and origins of some of the heroes have changed a little bit. So I'm going to pose a theory that has no evidence whatsoever. This is just throwing shot in the dark.
Mhm.
What if it's not Kara, and what if this is a villain? Something that would be interesting to me is not setting up another hero that's been here for 20,000 years, but what if you set up a villain? Huh? Let me give you a thought here. An ancient villain, um, changing the origin of someone like, let's say, Vandal Savage. Maybe Vandal Savage wasn't this caveman, finds a meteor, absorbs its radiation, becomes invincible, becomes, an intellectual, and basically rules mankind throughout the ages. What if this was a Kryptonian who said, they left me to die. I'm gonna start, building my own civilization here. Oh my God!
Mhm.
See, I'm already loving my own idea. So what if like
Right.
this is setting up a villain like Vandal Savage again? And I'm only throwing a villain reason out there because what would the purpose be of Kara, Supergirl, being on Earth for 20,000 years? That's a weird thing to set up, I think.
Yeah, that doesn't set up completely in the timeline unless she left the same time Clark did, got transported somehow through the Phantom Zone and time traveled back. That's the only way I could see it, and it's somehow been frozen all these years. But another theory I have is if it's not Kara, and I know I'm referencing the Justice League movie because I don't know if he said in the movie, but more in the trailer. But Steppenwolf says, "No lanterns, no Kryptonians."
Yeah.
We never know of a Kryptonian who fought the initial battle thousands of years ago that we
Yeah.
see that's talked about as the origins of the Steppenwolf fight with the mother boxes. What if that Kryptonian was a part of that battle that saved Earth
That'd be
with
cool.
the Olympians and the Lanterns? So that'd be interesting. I mean, there's so many other Kryptonians out there that we think of him as the last son of Krypton, but yet somehow these people still keep appearing somehow, right? So Kara is the initial thought, but yeah, the only way it would make sense is because Kryptonians are grown, not born. Clark is Kal-El is the only natural born Kryptonian
Right.
that we know of in this universe. So it's very possible that Kara was farmed. So could she still be Clark's cousin? Yeah, in a way. And it's very possible she could have been on that ship thousands of years ago and could have been in that epic battle with the Amazons and the Lanterns. But where she's been hiding all these years, that'll be the big mystery.
There you go. Again, I'm like, Carl's the obvious choice, but
Mhm.
why set her up to be here for 20,000 years? Obviously, the Kryptonian ship had to have been here a good time ago, but just to
Right.
do it that long makes you wonder what would be the purpose for that. Because if she's here for 20,000 years, she's like the most powerful figure on the planet by this point.
And yeah, you would think that, but she's kept herself hidden, obviously. And it would make sense that that's the planet Jor-El would send his son to, knowing there's someone that survived there on that planet. He knows that. There's somebody that can teach my son how to adapt to this world.
Yeah.
And maybe that was his initial plan in sending Kal-El to Earth. So maybe he counted on Kara being still alive, but we don't know.
All right, we spent more
That's
time than we spent more time on that than I
we could
thought we
talk a
were
long
going to.
time about this.
I
Yeah.
do, I do. Yeah, I know. Something I actually skipped that I know you found interesting was that on the planet Krypton, there's a broken moon in the atmosphere,
Mhm.
which was an Easter egg to Doomsday, which that damage was caused by Doomsday.
Yep.
JC, is Zack Snyder literally telling us that there is still a comic book accurate Doomsday alive in the universe, and that we see Michael Shannon and BVS get transformed into like a abomination type Doomsday?
Right.
All
Either
right.
there is still a comic Doomsday, a la the one we saw in Krypton, that looks really good, or the whole Doomsday thing is basically an abomination, and Michael Shannon could be the abomination form of Doomsday. I don't know. That's the speculation. I would love for him to have planned all along for there to be an actual Doomsday coming out and being a part of this, but I don't know. I mean, that's possible. That's very possible. Either it's one of two things. Either there is still a Doomsday out there, or the only reason that the machine said it was forbidden to recreate dead tissue was because they had experimented with it and created an abomination Doomsday, and he did
We've
that
tried this
mystery.
before. It didn't go well.
Yeah, don't do it again, damn it.
Fool me once, shame on you.
Yeah,
All right. So I thought it was interesting that Zack
yeah,
Snyder had revealed that they had written out an entire Kryptonian alphabet. I got to look that up now. I'm gonna start writing all my
yeah,
my words and my who writes anymore. But I'm gonna start
yeah.
writing letters to people in just Kryptonian language and have them decipher it.
I mean, there's already a font. If you use the Smallville font, it's all Kryptonian anyway. So
There you go. There you go. Kryptonian history lesson when Clark Kal-El is learning the history of the Kryptonians from his AI father Jor-El. It was a very original type, original way of giving us that information, presenting the information. It was a liquid metal type movie video, like 3D
yeah,
model that was showing sort of the history. And when you watch it, you're like, oh, it's very interesting. And then Zach reveals that this is sort of like a propaganda type video, that this is something that they use to tell their own
yeah,
personal history. It's not Jor-El making this stuff on the spot. It's basically like, I don't know, like
Artificial
Um,
intelligence. Yeah.
Here you go. Here's what's
Yeah.
like. Here's the history of your planet from the '90s. Like it was like old school, and then the reason why you get the it makes sense that it's a type of propaganda that's being used is because all the Kryptonians are being shown in these very heroic poses and like
Yeah.
look at us and stuff like that. So it's not just something Jor-El AI came up with on the spot, but it's basically like here's a history of us. It's like a
Yeah. And
presentation type video.
I thought this when the movie came out, it was presented very communist like. If you go
Oof,
back and look at
yeah,
some of communist history, communist Russia, communist China, even North Korea, if you look at some of their history and their propaganda, those are the types of poses that people are drawn into. Very heroic, very pro what they're pro communist party.
you're
So
right.
when it came out and it showed that, I was like, why does it look like a communist film? And now that makes sense. It basically was a propaganda why Kryptonians are good.
There you go.
That's basically what it was. Almost a brainwashing there. Yeah.
Exactly.
Mhm.
On this ship is when Clark gets his Superman suit, the famous red and blue suit. Well, we find out that wasn't just a suit sitting on this ship, like a lot of people were harping on about. That as soon as Jor-El's AI was uploaded into this Kryptonian ship, that he sort of speed produced this suit for his son Clark Jor-El. So fans, we can speculate no more. That's basically what
Yeah.
happened, and let's just let it go now.
It's a fancy 3D printer. That's basically what it is. So, yeah.
I'm just gonna
I
call
mean,
out this next sequence because it was just amazing to watch it again. And there's not a lot of light moments in this movie, which is one of the things I had kind of criticized the film about. But this is definitely one of the best ones. The first flight by Clark, him learning how to fly, and
yeah.
just seeing like how bad it got at first. Him jumping, him falling, him taking out a tip of a mountain, and then him getting it right the second time, and then us just speeding with him through these canyons, just absolutely glorious. I could probably use another 30 seconds to a minute of it. I just thought it was so much fun. So just loved every single shot and idea they had, from the gravity sort of circulating around his fist as he's about to take off from the ground. This just goes to show you there's so much thought and detail in this film that it's hard to dislike a lot of their decisions.
Definitely, yeah. This was that was like very humorous of it. It was almost like the Matrix. Everybody falls the first jump. You're not
Oh
going to get
yeah.
it right the first time, you know.
It
So
is very Matrix.
yeah,
Damn it.
yeah,
It
it
is
was
Neo.
very, yeah, it was very much Neo. Oh, he's the one. What if he makes the first jump? Like, no, everybody falls. You know, you're not that good. So, but yeah, it did show more. Also, that Clark was having to struggle with those abilities too, having to learn that.
Later on, the death of Pa Kent, Kevin Costner's
Hmm.
character. Still wish they would have written it differently, but it it
Yeah,
it does help to set up a lot towards the end of the film. So just Zack revealing, or Zack describing the thought process behind all of this. Clark's respecting his father's wishes to not expose himself to the world, no matter if he feels if his father's right or wrong. He's respecting what his wishes are. He's going along with the idea, and it's something he just deals with for the rest of his life, basically. But still, watching it
yeah.
again, tough to watch, man, but very powerful moment.
It was a hard lesson for him that you can't save everybody. And I
No.
think in any Superman origin, even Smallville, he's had to learn you can't save everybody. And I think this one, it was the hardest lesson for him to learn because it was his own father, his adoptive father, and someone very close to him. But he understood why that he can't. He has to make those tough decisions, and I think that really foreshadowed the one he had to make at the very end of this movie too.
If I'm Kevin Costner, though, if I'm Jonathan
Yeah,
Kent, and I know my son is indestructible,
yeah.
I'm just like, all right,
Get your ass over here, man. You know.
you better go get the dog.
I mean, it's funny we're talking about that. You know, get the dog saved when pro wrestler Shad Gaspard was found. It's a sad,
Mm,
tragic story. was swimming with his son, was carried out in Riptide. The Coast Guard got to him and he said, "Save my kid first." And unfortunately, Shad was body was recovered today. Rest in peace. It's such a sad story, but it's one of those heroic things dads would want to do for their own kids.
Yeah.
As a father of two, I can see that, and the wrestling world is mourning it. But in getting back to this movie, Clark doesn't understand why his dad made that sacrifice for him at that moment, and that's very hard to watch. But it's just one of those things dads do for their kids.
Tough.
Mm-hmm.
Zod breaks out of the Phantom Zone and he's found his way to Earth after Clark ignited the Kryptonian ship with his AI. And so now Zod's basically arrival on Earth is broadcasted by this message, which
I love this message. That was one of my favorite parts of the movie. Yeah, I love this part.
I forgot all about it. All about it. And the way Zack Snyder described it was beautiful. He said it was, very much inspired as like a Twilight Zone reference. He wanted this entire movie. He kind of says is more of an invasion movie than anything else. And so when you actually look at that, this is not a comic book movie. This is an alien invasion movie, baby. It kind of points to that theme directly. So very much love the Zod message and love the way that it was done. Haunting with all the power going out, and then especially Martha Kent, as soon as the power comes back on and the bulb explodes behind her and she screams a little bit. Ah, shit. There's so much to love about this movie.
My favorite part about that too is he hacked everything in the world, phones, TVs, and it's broadcasting in whatever language.
Right?
That country. Yeah, it's like, yeah. What every hacker wants that fucking kind of technology, man. And you're not going to get that on Earth. I thought that was pretty damn amazing. So
absolutely great. Let's see here. I love that we see young Clark holding a philosophy book. He's getting bullied by some like high school kids, and this is to show that he had aspirations beyond Smallville. Great for Zack to kind of point that out. Yeah. When Zod is actually threatening Martha and he's looking for the Kryptonian ship, Superman really loses his cool and he immediately attacks Zod, and you see him go through gas stations and a couple of Smallville businesses and stuff like that. And watching it the first time, I'm going to admit, I'm just like, dude, what are you doing? Like, there's probably at least 5 or 6 people in that gas station that just blew up.
He has no control. Exactly.
You're right. It's exactly the way that Zack Snyder said it. He said he lost it. He went into a rage. He's not thinking about anything else except for like, bro, you just talked to my mom, bro? You threatened my mom, bro? So yeah, it's something that I didn't even pick up before. Yes, he's mad and we can see it, but I'm not expecting to see a movie where Superman loses his cool so much that it becomes reckless. And I'm willing to just, accept that now and take it for what it is. And I think it's great to kind of see him like that. So awesome.
Yeah, it makes sense. He doesn't have years of training to suppress that. He doesn't know how to pull his punches. And, his punches are sending shockwaves throughout the whole fight. And so he doesn't know how to reel it in. It's very much like if you start training a Jedi too late, they're already got emotions developed. That's the downfall of Anakin. In some ways, the downfall of Luke. They're very emotional. They don't have those in check.
Yeah.
So, like we said at the beginning, this is about Clark wearing a Superman suit. They're not even calling him Superman yet. This is really a movie about Clark, and he's got to figure these things out.
You're right. You're right about that.
At the expense of the town of Smallville.
It's all good. Zack said that he likes the idea that the energy being dispensed from the world engine as it's being started up is volcanic in nature. So I also like that as well. It's sort of very industrialistic for them to sort of shooting out this volcanic ash and fire as it's starting up. Speaking of the world engine, Clark, battling the defenses, which is very liquid metal looking as the propaganda movie was all about. So this same sort of technology is now being used to fight off Clark as he's trying to destroy the world engine. So very interesting that the same technology is being used for like a number of things. It's like, I don't know, name something that we use for everything. It's like duct tape. You can use duct tape for this. You can use duct tape for that. Kryptonians, they got liquid metal. You could use liquid metal for your home security system. You could use liquid metal for your teleconferencing. It's basically the one thing that they have a lot of on Krypton, apparently, and you can use it for a number of things. When you flush the toilet, liquid metal in the toilet, and that same liquid metal powers your refrigerator, which powers your house and powers. You feed it to your flying dog.
Cuts
I
your
don't know what they're
grass.
called. Exactly.
Yeah.
Awesome. Where was I? Clark. This was actually the favorite scene that Henry Cavill had said he loved to watch was Superman, Man of Steel, flying into the world engine and sort of getting up after destroying it. Henry Cavill said at the end of the watch party that was his favorite scene to watch. That's one of my favorite scenes to actually watch as well, mainly because we see Henry Cavill, looking up at the world engine, trying to build this energy up for himself to get up and power through it. And I swear he looks like Christopher Reeve in this shot. And I think some people within production denied trying to do that. You can't deny it, right? It looks like Christopher Reeve in this shot.
Yeah, it's Christopher Reeve brought Superman to life on the big screen, and that's one subtle reference to it. There it is right there,
Do they just look that much alike and I've never noticed?
It probably, yeah. I mean, when they were casting Superman Returns, Henry Cavill was second.
There
First
you go.
was Brandon Routh. So
forgot about that.
There was always something there, and everyone thought Brandon Routh looked just like Christopher Reeves. And then Henry Cavill, and then Cameron Coof in season 2 of Krypton, when he was in a fight with Lobo, he he reloaded his shoulders much like Henry Cavill did in Mission Impossible, and he said that was his ode to that Superman. So, there's one little subtle hint, but it's not so much that it looks like Christopher Reeve; it looks like Superman.
There you go.
And that's what it's about. Christopher Reeve was Superman, and Henry Cavill's becoming Superman in that moment.
Everybody's favorite Kryptonian. I'm not talking about Kal-El or Zod, but Feora. Everybody's favorite Kryptonian, Feora. This is the part of the movie where she actually gets stuck in the Phantom Zone because they had a plan to send all the Zod's forces into the Phantom Zone by ramming a couple of the, I forget.
Was the
ships into each other, basically.
Yeah, but like reverse engineer the hyperdrive and reverse it so that it pulls them back into the Phantom Zone, or basically into a black hole. Was really what it was.
A singularity, as everybody calls it.
Yeah.
So we see Feora go into this singularity, the black hole, and Zack Snyder, cheeky Zack Snyder, says, "You never know, Feora could return." Because basically people, I think his wife was sitting next to him, and I think she even brought up the question like, so is she alive in the Phantom Zone? And and he's like, I don't know, she could be. She could return. She's basically alive over there.
Yeah.
Now, before anyone says like, oh, that doesn't mean anything, or that that doesn't mean as much as you think it does. We're just reaching here. Let me stop you for 1 second and let you know that the actress who played Feora went onto her Instagram and said, talk the talk, but do you walk the walk? She says, bored in the Phantom Zone. Doesn't end there. She says, I'm ready to rumble. One of the fans actually responded, said, are you going to come back, or is that a TBT? Throwback? Truth be told, I don't know what that is.
Truth be told, throwback. I don't know. Throwback. Well, it's not Thursday. It can't be that.
It can't be Thursday.
No.
Is that I don't know what that is. TBT. Is that a TBT? And she says, working on it. So, hey, she's down. I think the fans are down.
I
Aora
think
making a comeback, that'd be amazing.
I think it's a smart play to leave that storyline open ended because nobody deep down knows what happens when you go through a black hole. Are you pulled into another world? Are you pulled into another universe? So uh, maybe this is her finding a way back, or maybe this is her getting pulled into another Earth. You know, we don't know how they're going to explore if they explore the multi-Earth, multiverse thing here in this universe.
Oh yeah, completely agree. Getting towards the end of the film, I love that Michael Shannon's character Zod, he even calls it out to Clark and says, like, I've been training all my life to sort of control my senses. Like,
Yeah.
so he automatically figures out, doesn't know by the beginning of this fight how to, fly at least. But by the end of this fight, he knows how to fly. He's using his heat vision. He totally picks up on how to sort of harness these powers. Because, like you said, or like Michael Shannon said, he's a freaking soldier. So I love that he gets rid of the armor, and Zack Snyder says, well, he's stronger than the armor now. He doesn't even need it anymore. And I'm like, that is true. He doesn't need the
That's
armor
the whole
anymore.
point. It shows how much quicker he can adapt to the world than Clark in his 20 some odd years on the planet never could. And that was powerful, and Snyder has set that up in the whole film. Clark is struggling to come to terms with his powers, how to use his powers. And in the duration of this fight, Zod figures it all out. So, but it's another thing about how he's genetically engineered that way. He's trained that way. And it makes the most sense in this world that Snyder has set up.
Details, man. It's all about the details.
Yep.
Killing Zod. Zack Snyder says this is about Clark ending up alone. We can debate whether or not he should kill Zod, but he's choosing us. Us meaning humans.
Humans, the Earth. Yep.
The Earth. And he's also torn a piece of himself out. So again, it's sort of, you understand the pain and everything that he's going through, but to hear Zack sort of reiterate it just kind of eases our thoughts a little bit about the whole killing of Zod. And so I really liked how he laid that out there. And it's another just major point of this film. This is what separates this film from any other Superman film, because this Superman is having to make
a life or death situation. Yeah.
He's not only in these situations, but he's making these major decisions. He's deciding whether or not to kill off the rest of his planet, his civilization. That's no small feat. It looks like in the film when he's having to do it within like 3 seconds, decide to kill somebody, but there's just so much more depth within that decision than we're willing to discuss or to process right away. So it's just a major point in this film. And again, this movie is so deep because it's actually forcing us to see that happen within the psyche of Clark. I love it.
Yeah, when this movie came out, this is what everybody asked me about as a Superman fan. I thought he didn't kill. This is like everyone complaining that Batman killed in BVS, right?
No problem.
There's a problem with that movie, but there's a reason Clark had to do it. And as a last resort to save humanity, goes back to the lesson he learned from his father. You can't save everybody.
That's right.
As much as he wanted to work with Zod and teach Zod that these people are worth saving, this planet's worth saving, you can't save everybody. And it's one of those things, he has to kill him there or Zod's going to destroy the whole planet. And that was a decision he had to make, and obviously it was the right one. So, but he had to, that's part of the scream is, yes, he was making that choice. He's killing his own people, but deep down, he really doesn't have a full attachment to them other than he was born there, but he has no recollection of it. But it's him struggling again with the idea, I can't save everybody. And maybe that deep down that reminded him of the fact that he lost his father tragically. Yeah. That's a lesson he learned from his dad.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Zack says we see General Swanwick and Agent Ferris. He called her Agent Ferris, but Captain Ferris, I don't really know.
Captain, I think. I don't remember the rank, but Lieutenant something. Yeah.
So Zack says, is it really Swanwick? I don't know. Which, if you've followed our show, we've already revealed who General Swanwick is supposed to be. If you don't want to know, because you're probably going to see it in the Snyder Cut. Hopefully we do. If we don't, I'm going to have some really big questions. But let's just say he is another hero. How about this? If you don't want to know, I'm going to count down from 3, and you just like hit mute button on your device, whatever it is, or turn the volume
Or
all the way
skip
down.
ahead 10 seconds or something like that. Yeah.
Skip ahead 10 seconds. All right. So 3,
Yeah.
2, 1. General Swanwick is Martian Manhunter.
There you
Okay,
go.
moving on.
So it's nice tease, by the way. So yeah.
It's a great tease, and it's also great to rewatch Man of Steel knowing that, because I haven't seen this since I've known that piece of information. So now I'm really listening intently to every single sentence and word he's saying, because now everything has a different meaning. Every time he refers to, you know, the enemies, or to Clark, whenever he uses certain language about aliens or Kryptonians or extraterrestrials, like everything has a different meaning now. So it's just great to rewatch this, having that thing in mind. And then I'm also looking for little Easter eggs to see, like, oh, okay, and this lighting was sort of coloring his face this way, and I'm like, I wonder if that was a little tease or a little bit of a way to show us what was happening. But I hope we get to actually get that revelation in the Snyder Cut, Zack Snyder's Justice League.
It makes you want to go back and watch BBS again too, because he's in that film, if I'm not mistaken. So
yeah, he
if
is.
he's in that film. Yeah. So what does he say there that also teases that as well?
Can't wait.
What do they sneak in?
Got to go watch that one too.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man! All right, so the movie's now over, and Zack Snyder's doing a Q&A, and the first guest up on his live stream is the one and only Man of Steel himself, Henry Cavill, and the fans go wild. There's tens of thousands of people watching the stream at
He
this
jumps
point.
into the stream during the final battle too, in time to talk about what his favorite scene was as
Exactly.
well. So yeah,
Absolutely loved
sneaky.
it.
I knew something was up. I was like, why is Henry Cavill joining this?
There you go.
With a mustache, by the way.
That was funny. Funny. Listen, it's probably his real mustache, but honestly, like, there's just so much of a. It's like a visual pun to have that mustache on you while you're doing a live stream about Man of Steel. Come on now.
Yeah.
Anyways, they also had some major fans join the stream to ask some questions to Zack as well as Henry. One of the questions I loved was actually to Henry, asking him about wearing the suit for the first time. I think they actually test an old Christopher Reeve suit on him first, is what he had mentioned. But Henry described it as feeling empowering. That was the words that he used. He says, the first time I put it on, it was empowering. And then he thought, this should feel ridiculous because I'm wearing this, big blue suit in front of all these people. But he goes, I don't feel a damn thing about this being silly at all.
So codpiece and everything. Hell no, man. I look that badass. That's a dream for any Superman fan to wear one of those things, Yeah.
Exactly. Henry actually asked a question to Zack that I thought was interesting. He said, how advanced is that Jor-El AI? Getting a little bit more specific is, can that consciousness is it actually capable of love? Is that how advanced it is? And Zack, who I thought was like, oh, he probably didn't think about it too much, then he came out with actually the best answer. He said, I don't think so. It would undercut Jor-El's sacrifice. I'm like, holy shit, he's actually right about that, basically. If it's more of a love letter to his son, is how he described it. So, makes a lot of sense. Why does it make sense? Because if you could upload your consciousness, like literally your brain, everything you know, your memories, your feelings, your thoughts, your emotions, into an AI or a computer, then you're not giving up anything. You're basically living out the rest of your life with your son. And why wouldn't that be your first go-to? Why wouldn't that be the thing that you think of first? Hey, I'm going to send my son to Earth. The pod's only big for one person, so I'm going to go ahead and upload myself to a computer, and I'm going to go live the rest of my life with him. It cheapens his own sacrifice to save his son from the destruction of Krypton and Zod's forces, by the way, if that AI was capable of love. So again, Zack he's thought this out to a T.
Mm-hmm.
So I love that answer when he was asked that question by Henry.
Made the most sense too. I mean, it's a computer. I don't even know if it's able to process the feelings that they have anyway. So it's there for knowledge. It's there to teach him. It's there for the propaganda, as we mentioned. So
yeah,
that was its whole purpose, and that makes the most sense.
All right, for the moment we've all been waiting for, we're at the end of the stream. If you were watching the BVS stream with Zack on his Vero account months ago, it was hilarious because at the end of BVS, Zack's looking up at the screen and he's talking to the camera. The movie's already over, and he says, "Hey, don't these guys don't they do something later? Like, don't they form a team?" And as he says the word team, the video cuts. That was months ago. So it cuts abruptly on that line, all intentional. And now we understand that means a whole lot more. So I'm waiting for something like that similar to happen. I'm waiting for something to get cut. But
as soon as the question is, what are you going to release the Snyder cut? I was like, all right, cut this shit off. And I was waiting for him to just do that. I can't, whatever. Where is it? Where's the cut?
Gonna try and paint the picture for those of you who weren't able to watch it. He has about 10 other super fans on this stream. He's been calling on them one by one for questions. He goes to one of them, and she asks, "Will we ever get the Snyder cut?" In so many words, or however she said it. She actually said a lot more before that. She
sets it up, man. She sets the whole question up
big. I'm like, all right. Just get to the question. She did get to the question, but I didn't think this was the way they were going to do it. If anything, I thought like last time, Zack's going to say, maybe we got something going on. Oh, wait, this, and then cut, or something like that. So setting up the question was interesting. And Zack starts giving the very sort of politically correct answer of, well, it's not up to me. I can't release it. If it was up to me, I would. I would, guys. He's already starting to sort of set us up to let us down, if you will. I was like, oh, and I'm like, oh. So I'm sort of coming down a little bit from his tone of voice and how he's, answering this question. But then lo and behold, he says, I would love to show it to you if I could, but I can't. I can't do it. Henry on the stream says, I reckon you should show it to him.
Yeah, just show it. Who gives a shit? Just show it. What are they going to do?
Zack says, well, look, I can't show it to you, but I can show you this. There's a little something coming out pretty soon, whatever. He actually changes his camera to his screen, and there on his, in-home theater is a huge poster for Zack Snyder's Justice League. Weird that as I'm talking about this right now, like the biggest lightning hit.
You can't plan that.
I cannot plan this.
Good timing.
Shazam is outside. That's what it is.
I just heard the lightning get to my house too, by the way, right now.
It's probably like across the street because it was very, very quick. Anyways, so the poster's there. It is official. Zack Snyder's Justice League, as they're calling it now, not the Snyder Cut. Zack Snyder's Justice League will be out on the HBO Max streaming service sometime in 2021. I don't care when in 2021. It could be December 31st, 2021, for all I care. Take your damn time.
Just to troll us, you might do it then, right?
You've waited this long, and you might as well do it. So we know we're getting the movie, and now we actually know a lot more than that. But JC, give us your initial reaction to the news that the Snyder Cut is officially coming soon.
Oh man, pure excitement! I posted it on both of my Twitter accounts. I jumped into a Twitch stream and said, "Hey, it's coming." I mean, I was just I was excited. I was like, finally, they listen. Um, it was awesome. It shows. I mean, you guys did it when Young Justice was taken off the air. You clamored to bring it back, and I think that gave a lot of people hope that we could get the Snyder cut. So you keep fighting for something, it'll happen, and we're getting the Snyder cut. It's so awesome. It's a victory, and even more so, him to say, you know what, we still got some. Nice shirt. We still got some visual effects to finish. We still got some things to touch up, and that's good to see. It tells me, okay, at least they have all the footage they want. For now, it's just they're spending the money to get the visual effects to make this right.
Or do they?
Or do I would hope. I mean,
Who's
if they're going to do any reshoots now, I'm wondering how they're going to do it now with everything else going on.
Yeah.
Then if they're doing reshoots, Cavill better shave the damn mustache. But that was the other thing he said. Is like, I would love to see a version of this movie without the mustache. That was a great line.
Oh yeah.
I died laughing at that. And I was just ecstatic that this happened for everybody, not just me, but for everybody that wanted this to happen. So.
Okay. So now that we know the movie's coming, and we can no longer worry about, is there a cut? Is it finished? Will it ever be finished? Or anything like that. We actually know some more pieces of information that we can reveal to everyone that was being reported on by several sources. So this was announced today, May 20th, but the actual idea of the cut being released came about the day after Zack Snyder's BVS. Sorry, no. The second anniversary of BVS, the day after that, Toby Emmerich actually called Zack Snyder. Toby is the chairman of Warner Brothers, and he actually said, would you guys ever consider doing something? This was the day after the second year anniversary of BVS, back in November. We were all talking about it, all that good stuff. And yeah, that's how early this has gone on. So we're talking, 7 months ago now that this has sort of been in the works, and Zack did a number of things in between that and now. Between then and now, he did hold the BVS watch party. I guess I'm getting my dates confused because the BVS watch party was on the anniversary, maybe. No, I don't think it was.
Can't remember. Yeah.
And then Zack also held a poster competition for these Snyder Cut during this time. So who knows if that poster is going to be the official Justice League Zack Snyder Cut sort of poster. But just interesting that all of these events were happening during the time that he probably basically said, yeah, we'll do something. But we do know, it probably took a little bit of time for him to actually figure out, like, what is it going to take? What is he going to do with it? He held a screening for several executives at Warner Brothers. Toby was there. Jim Lee was there. What they saw was basically a rough cut. It was all black and white from what we've read in sort of the reports. And so this happened in February, and every single person at that viewing at Zack's home, of course, in his amazing theater, left feeling pumped, as they described it. So very passionate, very energetic, very excited for what was coming, what was going to happen. So what they saw was enough for them to come to an agreement that this was definitely going to happen. And they were trying to figure out the means of how to do it. What does that mean? Well, this is probably most likely not just going to be a movie that's being released. From what we're being told, this may actually end up being more like a miniseries, meaning not just one long movie, because we're hearing different time lengths from like 2.5 hours to 4 hours worth of a movie, but it actually may be sort of more treated like a mini series, so multiple episodes, anywhere from like 4 1-hour episodes all the way to maybe like 6 shorter episodes, if you will. So very sort of Mandalorian style, but hopefully not as short as Mandalorian, because those
hopefully
episodes are like 20 minutes long.
Yeah.
but that would be very interesting to sort of see this team and this group, the Justice League, in a more of a mini-series setting. I'm down. That's what kind of everything is doing today anyways. I mean, everybody loves
Right.
Mandalorian, and there's no, it's not some short production that they're working with. They're working on a big freaking budget. So if you're doing something that's sort of high production value and separating it into some, different episodes, I'm down. I'm for it. Anything to see Ben Affleck in the Batsuit again, I'm down. I'm in. Let's do it.
Anything to see Justice League the way Zack Snyder wanted it to be. For him to say that only about a fourth of what we saw was what his vision was, is like, man, what else did he do?
Yeah.
So, I know that I've seen some things about what he initial story ideas were, but now at this point, I'm like, all right, I'm staying away because I want to be surprised because we're finally getting it. And whatever it is, if it's 4 episodes, 6 episodes, if you do one long movie, I'm going to sit down and watch it. If it is a miniseries thing, then give me a file on HBO Max that's all of it together as one movie, and I'll watch that too. So either way, I'm excited to see it.
And if you're interested about, let's get this out of the way first. What JC said is absolutely true. Zack Snyder said about a fourth of the theatrical cut was my movie. We've discussed production assistants, people from the production of Justice League saying it was more like 10 to 15% of the theatrical cut that was actually in Zack Snyder's script. So what we're talking about is a very, very different movie from what was originally in the script to what was rewritten. Now, my position, and I'm sure it's JC's position, is there's no ill will towards Joss Whedon or anyone involved with the theatrical cut. You were told to do a job, and you were probably told by somebody who said, we have to change 75 to 90% of the script. I'm more upset with that guy than I am with anybody who physically worked on the film. So that being said, if you want to go back to one of our previous episodes, I'm going to have to find out which one it was, but we actually talked about, can't remember his name now, Silent Bob, Kevin Smith,
yeah,
who had discussions with people involved with the Justice League movie who were telling him the things that were cut. So we discussed in length aspects of the movie that were cut, from villains who were cut out of the movie to other heroes that were cut out of the movie, other Justice League members from different comics that were cut out of the movie. So we already know, or we already at least think, that there's several dogs going crazy, that there's several aspects of the Justice League film that are going to be in Zack Snyder's cut based on just Kevin Smith's reports. We also know actors who were cut out of the Justice League movie. Ray Porter, who was playing Darkseid, he was cut from the movie. Spoiler alert, sorry about that, but Ray Porter says he filmed some really amazing things, and he was nowhere to be seen in the movie. The guy that actually played Zeus in the flashback sequence against Steppenwolf was cut from the movie and was redone with another actor for whatever reason. But the guy who played Zeus said, I filmed some badass stuff and none of it made it to the screen. So even if you're talking about aspects of the movie that are going to be in it, like the flashback battle between the Atlanteans, the old gods, and the mankind, and the Lantern that were fighting Steppenwolf, even that, which is going to be in the Snyder Cut, was different. He actually says it was longer. The sequences they filmed were longer. Yes, things are sort of edited down for time, but now we're not having to worry about time. Now you're trying to fill content for a brand new streaming service that's battling the already king of streaming services, Netflix, and already up and comer, which is the Disney Plus streaming service.
Mm-hmm.
And then like nobody's getting rid of Hulu because you got live
Disney owns it.
TV and Disney owns
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
And no one's getting rid of Amazon Video because it just comes along with their Prime service. Like
Mm-hmm.
HBO Max has to pull out the big guns in order to gain some sort of competitive advantage and gain some of the market share. So this is the way of doing it. You're having to fill the content, and this is one of the big ways. So you're not worried about time at this point. So between the actors who were cut, between the production crew that revealed some of the things that they were filming, there's a lot that went into the Snyder Cut that that wasn't in the theater. So you can go back, find that episode where we talked about all that,
That
and
we've done
find
so
out
many,
all
I
those
forgot.
things.
Yeah.
Oh dear Lord. Okay. Lastly, Zack Snyder says it will be an entirely new thing, and especially talking to those who have seen the release movie, because he never saw it, a new experience apart from that movie. So there you go. You probably saw 1/4 of what I did and what JC had said. And Snyder also said, I always thought that it was a thing that in 20 years, maybe somebody would do a documentary and I could lend them the footage, little snippets of a cut no one has ever seen. And then his wife says, with the new platform and streaming services, you can have something like this. You can't release something like this theatrically because it's so long, but you could with the streaming service. It's an opportunity that wasn't there 2 years ago, to be honest. I mean, I will finish with, things are sort of going really good before the Warner Brothers executives from years past got involved. Uh, the theatrical cut is not the second version of Justice League. It's actually the third. The Snyder cut, which was filmed, was the second version of Justice League. Well, steady, what does that mean? What's the first? The first one was this. Zack Snyder and Chris Terrio wrote, from what sources are saying, was an amazing script. Then when BVS came out and the people, critics mostly, who criticized the film for a number of reasons, and the fans that couldn't get behind Batman sort of being, extremely violent, even though he was dealing with PTSD, people. When all of those reports came out and all those opinions came out, the executives panicked and they went to Zack and they went to David Ayer and they said, David, you got to change Suicide Squad. David was forced to change Suicide Squad. So that's not even the real Suicide Squad that we should have gotten. And then Zack and Chris Terrio rewrote Justice League. So the Snyder cut that was filmed, the stuff that Zack actually filmed, was his own rewrite that he was forced to do because the executives had already panicked. Maybe Zack, with the little bit of money, not a little bit, but with the money that he's getting from Warner Brothers, because apparently he's getting like $20 to $30 million to finish this thing. And with the time that he has, maybe he's not just finishing what he has, but maybe he's trying to get closer to that first draft. That first draft between him and Chris Terrio of the Justice League apparently was incredible. It was more action, a little bit more violent, a lot darker, if you will,
Darker,
whatever
more
else.
serious. That's been the tone of his films. That's the whole point of his story.
Yeah.
DC is dark. It's that's the way it is. And I think Warner Brothers panicked because it's not Marvel, it's not MCU, it's not as lighthearted. But when you're a DC fan, it's nothing against Marvel. It's a different tone. I don't want what Marvel did with DC characters. I want DC to do its own thing. So, and I've stuck with it. Said you got to be patient with Zack's vision. Now, yeah, it's being called Zack Snyder's Justice League. It's a director's cut. He's got all the freedom in the world as long as they're pumping money for him to support this. So I think we will get something kind of in between script 1 and 2 for this movie. That should be
Agreed.
really good. Yeah.
Agreed. So listen, fans on both sides of the aisle, whether you thought this was never going to happen or whether you thought this is always going to happen, let's come together now and let's just hope for the absolute best outcome, which is an incredible movie. We all want to see Henry Cavill as Superman again. We
In a black
all want to
suit.
see
In a
We
black
all
suit,
want to
damn it.
see Ben Affleck as Batman once more. Ray Fisher deserves to be Cyborg again. Let's get him back in the suit because we know a lot of his portion was cut out of the film. We're already getting more Gal as Wonder Woman, but who doesn't want to see more Wonder Woman in any movie? So we're gonna hope for the best, and we got some time to wait. So probably more reports will be coming out between now and the release of Zack Snyder's Justice League. But for now, let's just say congratulations to all of these Zack Snyder supporters. Congratulations to Zack, his wife, his production team, his crew. He works with a lot of the same crew in all of his movies. And to the entire cast, because Ray Fisher's been a big proponent of the Zack Snyder cut. Jason Momoa, if you've been living under a rock, he's been a big supporter of the Snyder cut. Even Gal, even Ben, they've voiced their support for it. And then Henry, for him to come out on the live stream during the announcement, let's hope that that's a bigger deal than what we're actually expecting. Henry being on that stream during that announcement might show a sign that he might not be done as a Man of Steel, and we're all for it. We're getting the Snyder cut. I'm going to finish this by saying if DC decides, let's go ahead and finish this out, you could totally do that. We were supposed to get Justice League 1. We were supposed to get Justice League 2. And then we were supposed to get Justice League 3. And that was going to end sort of this story arc for this group of heroes. And if you say, well, it's too short, we should have 30 films. Listen, if you're following the animated films, things can be redone. And you also you're also watching the DC Comics universe, which is made up of a multiverse. There's an infinite number of Batmen. There's an infinite number of Wonder Women. There's an infinite number of Supermen. And you can explain all this away if you want to reboot the entire Justice League or DC Comics franchise, and I'm all for it. So, to all the fans, congratulations. This is a moment to just be grateful for decisions that were announced today. Congratulations, Zack Snyder. Got this from San Diego Comic-Con 2 years ago. That's how long this entire release of Snyder Cut thing's been going on for 2+ years now, actually. So, oh, man, it's been a hell of a day. 2020 is looking up, man. We're turning this around.
And to Mike, who said, can we stop with the hashtag already? No, we're going to keep it going until the movie comes out, man. I'm sorry. It's going to be that way for a while.
Mike, I'm going to invite you to the screening party. It's going to be at my place. Going to have a big screen showing the film. It's going to be magical.
Yes.
All right.
And my hope is that if this is as well as people say, this does relaunch the rest of it with Zack Snyder at the helm and Warner Brothers not involved in getting involved in the story. Let Zack finish his entire vision. That's really all I want out of this. And for those that want so many shows back, this is step one. We still got Krypton and Swamp Thing we all want back that need another season at least. So maybe this is step one on that process Well, step two, if you think about it, because you had Young Justice, we had the Snyder Cut. Let's bring back Krypton. Let's bring back Swamp Thing. Maybe I'm getting ahead of myself, but this gives me a lot of hope that we could see that in the future.
There you go. I completely agree. All of that, a new Justice League film and a Supergirl film, apparently, because Zack says, stay tuned.
My daughter will love that. I can't wait.
Hey, so will mine when she grows up.
Yeah.
All right. That'll do it for this episode of the Countdown to the Geekcast. What did you think about the announcement today? We want to hear from you. Message us on Facebook, or you can just comment below this post, or you can also email us at on our contact page of our website at www.countdowntothegeekcast.com. For the Countdown to the Geekcast, my name is Steady. With me on this very important and necessary Justice League announcement episode is the man, the myth, the legend, JC.
To my fellow Kryptonians, And every DC fan out there, we've been waiting for this. We got it. Let's just enjoy it and be grateful because the year's starting to look up now when we get news like this. Let's enjoy it.
Congrats, Zack. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Sir.
It's amazing. Yes. Let's do this. Peace.
Hey guys, AJ Nyman here. For more Geekcast episodes, subscribe to us on iTunes or your smart device podcast app. And please, write us a review. Be sure to like us on Facebook at facebook.com/Countdown City Geekcast. Follow us on Twitter at ccg_podcast or visit our website at www.countdowncitygeekcast.com.